The origin story of Puncher's Dale kind of starts a little bit more with my mom than it does with me. But she was doing market gardening and she was told she wasn't allowed to be in the sunshine anymore. So she decided to find some ways to do indoor gardening. She discovered microgreens, discovered mushrooms as well. So we did used to start with mushrooms and she got really into it, but she needed some help. So she asked me to come and help her. And at first I was like, I'm not really sure if I really want to do this. But after just coming and visiting her a couple of times, I thought, you know what, actually, this looks like a lot of fun. So I decided to do it with her. I started doing more back end stuff and then I actually moved out to where she was and started helping with the actual on farm tasks. And then we went from there. So we started in Chilliwack, BC, in Yarrow. There's a little farm there. And then we ended up moving to Mission, BC. And we're still here in a bigger warehouse, probably too big, but we're here chugging along. And and now the mission is a little bit more about making sure that I have these beautiful images of these wonderful dishes. One thing is my mom and we never used to see each other very much. And we would go out once, twice, three times a year to some of the nicest restaurants that we could find and just be like, okay, we're going to get whatever we want, whatever wine, whatever meal, just go all out. And there are definitely some chefs that can do amazing things with flavors. So for me, it's about how do I find those chefs and how do I help them make that beautiful meal that really does engage all the senses and really gives you that long lasting experience, that memory of, wow, this is amazing. Like the flavors, the environment, everything. So for me, it's a little bit more about that now. It's just trying to find those chefs, find them and help them make beautiful dishes.
Oh, that's a nice vision.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been at it now?
And now it's been almost 4 years, I would say. Yeah. Since it started out in COVID times. And we've been going ever since.
Great. And what's your current scale? What kind of, how many trays a week are you producing? How many harvests, things like that?
We're around, it really depends on the week, but it would be like 100, there can be quite a lot of discrepancy from like 120 to 150 trays. A couple of weeks ago, we had full farm. I was thinking I need to go get some more racks. And now it's like the midsummer slump and we're like back down again. Everybody's gone on holiday. The grocery stores are slower. Restaurants pick up a little bit, but otherwise everyone's slow. We're back down to a few less trays, but it also depends on how efficient and effective you are with your trays and what you're growing. So that also changes as we're doing more testing every week. But in general, it's between there, 120 to 150.
Right. And so you've mentioned restaurants a couple of times. What other markets are you selling to?
Restaurants, grocers, independent local grocers, and direct to consumer as well. Although the direct to consumer is not nearly as large of a component as the restaurants and the grocery stores.
And I know you were doing farmers markets earlier in the year. Have you scaled back on those?
We do farmers, but there's a local farmers market in Mission. We go to that farmers market just because they're so close and it's very easy for us. I would like to explore with some farmers markets that are a little closer in towards Vancouver. But for now, this year, we've decided to stay away from the farmers market. There was a lot of work on the farm that had to be done. But I was like, who am I going to get? Is staffing, all that kind of stuff. So we decided to just focus on the local farmers market this year. And then we'll try and go to the bigger farmers markets next year.
Right. All right. Nice. Okay. So we're going to take a little bit of a different approach with this podcast. Instead of focusing on a specific topic, we're going to explore the theme here is like lessons learned, both positive and negative. And we've obviously had lots of interactions. I know you've had a good number of positive and negative lessons learned. So this is why I was particularly excited about talking with you about this. And you have a very good way of conveying your experience that I really like as well. So we're going to look at things like things you did from the beginning that made your startup a lot easier, and then looking at the things you didn't do and regret it, things you didn't do at startup, but it really didn't make a difference, and things you wish you knew that would have made a big difference. And then potentially, depending how much time we get into here, the major changes you've made as you've evolved. I have a tendency to dwell on the negative, like what problems are you having? But I want to start from a more positive. I'm trying to make change here. I want to start from a more positive perspective. So I'm wondering about the things you did in the beginning when you were starting up that really made things easier for you that in the beginning and that as you carried on continued to have a good effect? Yeah. And I know the one thing you mentioned when we talked earlier was your online presence. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, the role that played in getting you going.
Yes. I know when I first started making the website, I was so green to all of this that I would actually get pictures from my mom with the different crops and I would put them online and then send her the page and she'd be like, that's not radish. What is that? Yeah, I definitely needed to like spend some more time on the farm, but the website itself, like having a contact page and at least just a little blurb about what you do and what microgreens are and some pictures. And people really do like your own pictures as opposed to stock photos. It was really helpful for us to just have an online presence to begin having some kind of SEO already started, basically, because we had it up there from quite a while ago. So it's been working its magic on the back end for a while now. I personally had some experience building websites from a previous job. So it was something that I already knew how to do and could do quite easily. So that worked out really nicely. Social media was new to me. I had to get used to that. I tried to avoid it as much as possible up until needing it for my business. And so it was a little different and it's still a little hit or miss for me as far as like social media is concerned. I have a hard time with it. But it is definitely useful from a marketing perspective. I know a lot of people use it for sales. I've never really had the best luck as far as like a sales channel goes, but from a marketing perspective of just giving people a general idea of what you do and why you're doing it and having them connect with you, it's really a good way to draw people in. And then just from a perspective of somebody's going, okay, I have 3 suppliers that I could choose from and one of them has a social media presence, but the other 2 don't. They're often going to choose the one with the social media presence just because they know more about you naturally just by scrolling through your Instagram page or checking out your Facebook page. They feel more like they can trust you more. So it is important to actually have some kind of an online presence from that perspective. And then as far as actually getting sales from the website, we definitely pushed it a little bit more at first. I had a whole system set up for doing subscriptions and all that kind of stuff. Because we started during COVID, there were a lot of options for us that were available to us because a lot of software programmers were focusing on how do we help people make money remotely, basically? How do we give people tools that they can take their little business and shift it to an online business as quickly as possible so that there's lots of this like touch situation that's happening with people coming into stores and everything. So there were a lot of options available to us at the time. Since then, a lot of those options have increased in price drastically. And it just ended up not being all that worthwhile for us. So we still have a store. People can still order, but we don't have the subscription program online anymore. I could set up something on the back end, but it's just going to be a little bit harder for us at this point because we have so many different sales channels and so many different platforms that we have to manage inventory on and everything that it's easier to just have people do one order and come back another day. Or once they get to know us, then we just put them into a different program, different system. But as far as just actually ordering online right now, I would say generally direct to consumer is the way that we did the sales online. And there really were not there wasn't that much of a market as far as direct to consumer goes. Typically, consumers do prefer to have the convenience of going to a grocery store. So it's a little easier to get into the grocery store and then have them maybe order once in a while online. You also have to think about your immediate area that you're in and how far you want to deliver when it comes to a small order, just for one customer kind of a thing. So it depends on where you are as well, whether you're going to be successful for online orders or not.
And so in those early days, and I see this on the forums a lot, you've got your website up, you've got some products and photos there, but you're probably also trying to figure out how to grow these crops at the same time. Were you a little nervous about having this presence and not being able to fulfill orders if you got a good sort of response?
Yeah. So we did actually take quite a bit of time to figure out how to grow the crops properly before we really had the website live. So it did mean giving products away to friends and family, eating a lot of the stuff that you grow, and then putting the rest of it in the garden or the compost pile, basically. But we practiced. We made sure that we felt comfortable with consistently producing a certain product before we went out and tried to sell it to anyone so that we were making sales, but knew that we would actually be able to fill those sales once we actually went and started doing some sales. I don't know if that was really intentional though. I feel like it actually almost happened by mistake. Let's see if we can grow microgreens. Let's try it. We'll work with it. Okay, we have this product. What are we going to do with it? And then it was like, we have to do some sales. Okay, now how do we do sales? And that was generally more of the thought process. It wasn't really like a conscious decision, but it did work out in the end, knowing that we knew what to do before actually going and doing the sale. I would say though, that is a good way of approaching it. A lot of people do like to do sales before they actually have a product. And then they're like, we'll figure it out afterwards. I think for some other product that might be an okay way to do it. But when you're starting really small, you just have a few trays. It's not like you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on inventory that's going to be sitting around and you don't have anybody to sell it to yet. That is a completely different business model, different strategies. So I think sometimes when you're getting advice online, sometimes it's very easy to take advice that doesn't really apply to you and then get confused about what you should be doing. So I think especially with microgreens, if you're just doing your testing at home and you're growing a couple of trays and you're just trying to figure out exactly how to grow them the best way, then just grow a few trays and don't worry about it. But as soon as you start wanting to do some actual sales, then you need to have a dedicated space. And then you need to think about sales and just make sure that you can fulfill those sales. How many trays, how many racks, all that kind of stuff, and actually how to grow the crop.
So you mentioned as well, you've been mentioning sales and marketing, and in our notes here, you talk about focusing on sales and less on marketing and the importance of knowing the difference between the two. So can you talk about that, like how you look at sales and marketing as different and why you're focusing so much on sales?
Yes. So I didn't know the difference between the two when I got started. Everybody says the words like sales and marketing together, like they're this grouped thing. They're separate words, but if you actually ask a lot of people what's the difference, not everybody can actually answer that question. So I just spend a lot of time reading books, watching videos on YouTube, listening to other people online who had definitions of sales and marketing. And they do have this very distinct crossover between the two of them. So it can be unclear at many times whether you're doing sales or whether you're doing marketing. The efforts go together hand in hand. But ultimately, it's you had to choose between spending a lot of time making posts on your social media page that isn't directly going to result in a sale. So someone actually giving you money for the product that you create, then that is a little bit more considered a media effort that then is more general information for people to get to know your business better. Whereas picking up the phone and actually calling a business and asking them to drop off some samples. And then once they have some samples, actually asking them, would they like to buy? And that's what it really comes down to is, would you actually like to buy this? I know a lot of people actually get started in business and they ask all their friends and family. And this is one lesson that I learned from reading a few books, but also from the experience of it is you tell everyone about it and everyone tells you to tell your friends and family, but everyone's going to say, yeah, that sounds great. That's so exciting. And they're all going to say all these like positive, pretty things about what you're doing. But when it comes down to it, how many people are actually going to give you the cash? And that's what's important. That's how you're actually going to make the money and that you have a product that's worthwhile. So you have to actually ask people to buy your product. You can't just continue to give it away for free. And you have to start figuring out how much you want to price it for. And you got to think about your costs and everything. So the sales part of it is really what you actually want to buy. And you have to be okay asking the question and you have to be confident with your product and the quality. And if it means that you have to grow a lot of products to give to your friends and family for free while you're getting confident with how to grow it, then that's what you need to do. But when you're ready, then you need to go and say, hey, I've got this. It costs this much money. Do you want it? Give me the cash.
So we look at marketing as basically increasing your presence in this marketplace and sales as a way of convincing people to give you money for that product.
Yeah.
So this makes me want to go back. Do you feel by having your website up and a social media presence early that helped with that? Because you had the early marketing, which made it easier to follow up with sales?
Yes, I think so. I think there were a lot of people we spoke to that then we gave them a business card and they go and they check out your website. And there were a lot of people that actually emailed us out of nowhere that found us online initially. And this could be other businesses or consumers. So we definitely benefited from having that online presence. I think if we were not online, then they wouldn't necessarily know how to find us or contact us or anything like that. It was helpful, but did it really make a huge difference? I couldn't really say because I think the people who have actually ended up buying from us are the people who met us in person more often than anything else, or were referred to us by somebody that they knew in person than anything else. Having said that, though, I think it's like a second touch point. They meet you and then they're like, okay, let's just see, even though I like this person, what does their online presence look like? And if you have an online presence that looks professional, then you get a lot of people who are just like, wow, your website looks amazing. I actually get messages from other types of businesses contacting me about all kinds of things. They just have this impression from the website that we're like this giant corporation that really has our stuff together. That's good to know. But yeah,
If only they knew the truth. But
well,
I recall you have done a very good job of having very like sharp, eye-catching, like really professional looking photos. And that does really give the impression of
no,
like someone who's got their stuff together for sure.
yeah. And that's definitely something that even I spent time looking at YouTube videos. I paid for a couple of basic courses. I bought some lighting. I got a different phone so I could have a better camera. And it still takes practice. So the key for me there was that I actually found another person, a human being that spent their time figuring out how to take beautiful photos. That was at the beginning of their journey. So they were willing to do it for a very affordable price. And they would do the actual photos for the product and they would actually do food shots as well. So I ended up going, you know what? That's totally doable. Whereas when I first started, I thought, oh, hiring a photographer is just going to be like so expensive that there's no way that I could do so finding the right people at the right stage in their career that are willing to put in some extra effort because they get a little bit of cash that helps them keep going, but they're learning. Yeah, it's definitely a key ingredient to getting started. It's not, you don't have to do everything by yourself all the time.
So there's potentially a little bit of conflict there is because you mentioned here as well that in the beginning you did a good job of keeping your costs very low. And I wonder how you did that when maybe I'm speaking a lot for myself here, but there's a temptation to spend. There's a temptation. You talked about the spending you did do. You paid a photographer, you bought a new phone, you did some courses. So when there's so many things you could be spending money on, how did you keep your costs low in those early days?
In the early days, the phone came a little bit later on, actually, but in the very early days, it really was as simple as a few racks, some trays, the soil that needed to go into the trays, and the seeds. And we would buy smaller bags of seeds. We didn't worry about having inventory on hand or anything like that. It was having enough seed to last a certain amount of time, just in case the supplier runs out, was not even a thought that we had when we got started. We got really lucky. And we're always able to buy what we needed to buy. And my phone's actually gonna die here. So can we pause for 1 second so I can plug it in?
Yes, we can.
What?
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll edit this part out.
Balance it perfectly. I might just hold it for a sec. Okay.
Now the cord's in the way for it to stand up properly.
Yeah, exactly. I might have another stand here that.
Can you go sideways?
Is that going to work for the video?
It doesn't really, I mean, I'm sideways, so us being the same is better, but it doesn't really, yeah, video's a little more flexible anyway, so.
As long as you can prop it in. Okay.
Yeah. So we're talking about keeping costs low.
Yeah. Okay. So keeping costs low. When we got started, it was as simple as a few racks, some trays, some soil, just a few seeds, smaller bags of seeds. We didn't consider keeping stock of seeds available. It did create a bit of a problem for us at one point, but we can come back to that later. But yeah, we were just like, okay, we just have some lighting. We didn't even really worry about what that's absolute best lighting. It was just get some light, get some trays, see what it's like. There was a greenhouse store down the corner and that was going out of business because a whole bunch of different reasons. Anyways, we would go in there and nobody else wanted trays and he would give us trays for a quarter of the price of what they were supposed to be and things like that. So we did enjoy some benefits when we got started as far as keeping costs low. But even business cards, we just got like 2 business cards. We didn't worry about spending a lot of money on a lot of different things. We got a printer to print some labels. We started with small labels. And then we tried to keep, for the labels, for example, we tried to keep a certain size of label so that we were not increasing the cost per label. And I do actually need to get them printed by a label company, and I get them on rolls so I can pull them off easily. But I still kept that same shape and size so that if I wanted to just add in another product really quickly, instead of having to order the minimum amount of labels from the label supplier, I could still go and get the sheets and print the sheets if I needed to. And it's just a white label. We didn't like worry about fancy colors or anything like that. So we've kept it really simple in that way when it comes to saving on costs. But when it comes to, I guess the thing that was more of a temptation for us was like, oh, there's this other gadget or something that just came out, and that seems like it might actually be able to reduce costs if it helps us do this faster or do that better or whatever the case may be. And then you get tempted. Yeah, let's try it. You don't really know how it's going to work until after you try it. And then you already spent like $1,000 or whatever on this thing. And it turns out it's not as great as you expected it to be. So I do find most of the time just doing things, but it's like software. Like I like to let the market decide and have people give their feedback about our product after like they've got the extra spending money. Let them do the testing and then just read the comments and see if it's really worthwhile. Yeah. So focus on what is important to you as a business owner right now. If you don't have the money, like the spending extra cash money to just buy gadgets and try them, then don't let that make it feel like you're behind the ball. You should just be like, okay, I'm just going to keep my head down and just keep going. Focus on what's most important right now, today. Don't let something that just popped up in your email inbox suddenly make you feel like you're missing out on something.
Yeah, which is very much the time we're in. There's so many gadgets, there's so many tools we can use. And one of the goals of those tools is to reduce our amount of labor. And so when we decide not to use those tools in the early days, we end up often working more. And so I wonder how much that was the case for you and, what the hours looked like in the beginning and if they were a lot, how you avoided burnout. I know we've talked a little bit about burnout before. How was it in those early days when you're learning stuff? There's pressure on to do sales. There's a steep learning curve with all these things, and you don't have the gadgets to do these things for you. So you're doing everything manually. How was that in the early days with maintaining your energy and your spirit to keep going?
I think I have a knack for not wanting to give up, but it does work to my detriment as well. Yeah, it depends when you want to apply that particular skill set. But as far as burnout goes, I would say I probably feel burnt out every 2 days, basically. I feel like it's like a monthly cycle of just really don't feel like it today. And then a few days later, you get like a new idea. I think burnout actually, at least for me, the experience of burnout is a little bit more of like a mental issue, basically. Are you having thoughts that are making you feel like the things that you're doing are frustrating and not working? And a lot of that does happen with sales and marketing because you want to do something and then see what the result is. And often you have to just do a lot of things that you don't necessarily think are actually doing anything for you in order to see results when it comes to sales and marketing. And you have to be okay with that. Yeah, you just got to get into the trenches and do a lot of phone calls that you've got people on the other end that are like, no, don't call me. I don't want to talk to you. I don't know if that's really worth it. What am I supposed to use that with? You get a lot of negative Nelly to talk to. But yeah, you have to be clear about your mission and why you're doing it to begin with. I was not clear about my mission and why I was doing it to begin with. I had to build what that mission was for me. So there were many times that I was like, I'm not it. I'm going to quit. And I would just not work as hard for a couple of days, trying to give myself a bit of a break. And then I would find that the little bit of a break, even if it's just, oh, I have 2 hours to take my dog for a walk, was enough to make me go, okay, you know what? I think I have another idea. Let's just try this other thing. Or listen to a podcast. So listening to other people who have done things before, especially in business, is really helpful. You get a lot of people talking about they're just like, how hard me. It's really bad. Can you make it? Can you not make it? Are you going to push through or are you not going to push through? People are going to ask you, I'll just give you this money to like buy you out. And then you never have to worry about this ever again. And you have to decide if you want to continue to be the owner, if you want to be the employee, basically. So there are a lot of really hard days. And it's not just farming, it's just business in general. Farming makes it even more complicated sometimes because you have a product that has to be, especially with microgreens, sold immediately. Doesn't last nearly as long as a head of broccoli in the cooler or whatever it is that gets harvested on the field sometimes. You just have to be prepared for tough times. And ultimately, you always just want to be planning for a longer runway. So don't put yourself in a position where you put all of your eggs in one basket. You should be able to experiment. And I think this is one thing that burnout, this is where a lot of burnout comes from. It's just, oh my gosh, I thought that this one strategy or tactic was going to work. And I've just put like all the money in to try and make that work. And now there's no money left. And I don't know how I'm supposed to get to next month, basically. And that's where I think most people actually get burnt out. But having said that, I also don't have like a big family. I don't have kids or children running around. I don't have to make time for other things. I have a lot of time to be able to just keep pushing. I think that might be something that has worked to my advantage that maybe not everyone has.
Yeah, this is good. You touched on some challenging things, which maybe allows us to transition a little bit into the challenging stuff and the negative stuff, which is what I really love. And so this can get us into the theme. You just talked about all the stuff you did that really paid off and made things easier. But I know there's a lot of things you didn't do and either have regret about or just realize like, oh, now in retrospect, you see where those things were important. I wonder if you could talk about that in general, like when you think about what you didn't do and regret it, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
First thing I didn't do and regret it. There's quite a few things. And sometimes they come up later and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember it. That was a bad time. I try to just like shove it down, just pretend that never happened. Definitely not knowing enough about what the big picture plan was. I actually are there's an organization that is available to us in British Columbia. I'm not sure if it's in other provinces, but basically you can go to them and it's federal funding and they basically help you with your business plan and they don't charge you for it. And I remember going to a meeting with one of these ladies and she just was like, what's your big dream? What's the big picture of it? How far do you want to take this? Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And at that term, I just was like, I don't even know what I want to do next week. Never mind 10 years from now, big picture, how big does this business need to go? I just want to make a little bit more money than I'm making right now. But other people seem to have this knack of being able to have these big dreams and they can break it down, like how you move backwards. I didn't have any experience in the food industry. I had a lot of experience in business, but not in the food industry. I really did not know what to expect. I didn't know what the rules were. I didn't know what organizations were out there that I was supposed to look up to try and see what I was allowed to do, what I wasn't allowed to do as far as food regulations are concerned. Everything that I was seeing online was pointing you in the direction of don't care, just like do whatever you want, the thing. And I was like, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. But I didn't know where to find the information. I didn't even know what words to Google to look it up. So I really had no idea what to do. And not knowing what to do meant that we got to a point where we ran out of space in our actual growing space and we needed a bigger space. And so we were just looking for a unit to move into and we didn't really know what was involved in preparing that unit for growing. It's also a new industry and the rules are unclear. So there's that as well. There wasn't really anyone that I knew to reach out to ask questions for, ask questions to. And I didn't know what was required in order for us to break into other markets. I only learned after actually being approached by certain really big customers that we needed to have certain things in place in order to be able to sell to larger distributors. That is something that sometimes I would watch some videos online and be like, oh, there's a kind of slight hint towards that by this person over here. But their focus and their customer base that they're trying to talk to is not really necessarily trying to do things like that. Yeah, I just not knowing a lot of information about the food industry or farming and what is required from a food safe perspective was definitely information that I wish I had. And I knew that I didn't have it, but I didn't know how to get it. And that was really frustrating for me because I felt like there was a lack of confidence involved. And so I didn't do a lot of the steps that kind of got us to this level that we're at right now, because I just didn't know if I should take the next step.
So what are some examples there of the requirements or the rules that you learned about on the way? Some of which you probably did implement, and some maybe that you haven't. Like, what are some key ones that stand out for you?
Just in general, I would say, how are you supposed to clean your environment? What tools are you supposed to use to clean your environment? There was actually one point where we had a student, I don't know what school she was going to, UBC or something like that. And she just reached out to us because she's doing a project for the CDC. And I would like to interview you and get some information from you. And then as part of her project, we actually got on a call with a lot of individuals who are working at the CDC. And they asked us some questions. And in that process, I was like, what does that even mean? They would ask questions like, oh, okay, so you use bleach to sanitize your trays. Is it like food safe bleach, or is it like the bleach that you use for your kitchen? And I was like, the bleach that I use for the kitchen? Like, what is food safe bleach? Like, so things like that. And I'm sure that some of those definitions are also unclear, but they knew what they were talking about and we didn't know what we were talking about. And I was like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just things that simple. And as how much am I supposed to use in order to come up with this solution? Because people say things like, oh, use a hydrogen peroxide solution, but it's yeah, but how much hydrogen peroxide? Where do I get this hydrogen peroxide? Some people, I'm sure, guaranteed probably go to Shoppers Drug Mart and get hydrogen peroxide off the shelf there, and then mix that with something and use way too much water or not enough water or whatever the case may be. They're really basic things that you just don't know when you get started. You don't know. My mom luckily had been a nurse in her past life, so she definitely knew a lot about sanitizing her environment to be able to work in a cleanly environment. But that definitely, there's some basic food safe information that you can get from doing a food safe course. I hadn't done that for many years when we got started. I did have to do it when I was like working as a server, but way in the past, but I hadn't like renewed it. And yeah, I just never learned about any of those things. Like, how am I supposed to know that the knife is actually clean enough? Or am I supposed to clean the knife in between this crop and that crop? Or the batter? I learned only later that there were certain crops that were listed as being high risk crops when it comes to like allergies, like mustard, for example. I had no idea about any of that. But there were other things like maybe when you're like sprinkling your tray, like so you try to keep the mustard separate from the other items, because otherwise you might have mustard growing in your broccoli tray and you can harvest mustard into the broccoli box and you're not even going to know it necessarily and things like that. So it's a little different from microgreens, but still there are lots of examples of this information that just when I came across it, I was like, I probably should have known that, but where do you find this information? I couldn't find it online anywhere at the time. There is a guide that was created in Alberta that I did find at one point and read through that whole guide. And then going through that guide really got me to think about certain things. Like there in that guide, it actually talks about like black bulbs. And do you have a cover over the black bulb so that if it smashes, you can catch the glass? What are you going to do if that does happen? Do you have a policy in place to show all the praise away? Just keeping the environment clean and the crops safe from contamination, and then making sure that you have a system in place to train the staff and make sure that they know what they should and shouldn't do. People do silly things, like put their feet on racks. They need to tie their shoelace or whatever. So
I think it's interesting because I follow a lot of other microgreens growers on social media, and I see a lot of them doing these things on their social media page for the whole world to see, and they don't even realize they're doing it. It's an interesting gap that I've been looking at for many years in the industry. I wonder, in your case, did not having that knowledge, or how did that prevent your growth?
I think it prevented my growth directly by impacting my level of confidence. I, let's say we did get a call from a particular large restaurant chain and they were looking for a new microgreen grower. And they reached out to us and they came for a visit and they handed us some paperwork. This was about you have to work with GFS basically in order to get your product to our restaurant. And then the GFS paperwork was the first clue that I ever got as to what is required in order to be able to sell it to some of these bigger distributors. And I just didn't know. I didn't know what to say to them, or they would ask about things like traceability. And I think people have different ideas about what traceability is in their minds. That definitely was like interesting too. And it's okay. So how do you answer those questions? Somebody's coming now to visit to decide if you're going to be their supplier, and they're asking you what they think are basic questions, and you don't like have the answers to those questions. After experiences like that, you go, wow, I'm definitely an amateur and don't know what I'm doing here. And then you go through, but now how do I find these things? Now I have a clue as to the fact that there are certain things that need to be done. And how do I find this information? And that's how I ended up somehow finding my way to working with certain administrators, basically, trying to get help from like you and other people that do know what's going on and how to prepare yourself for different markets.
Yeah.
Yeah, but confidence was the big issue.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I remember going through that, many phases of that, like being really confident in what I was doing. And then having weeks where I was like, I can't believe I'm selling this to the public, even when you have good policies in place, because I know visiting your setup many times that was there. And I think you alluded to the benefit you had of your mom coming from nursing. So having an understanding of just the general things you need to do to keep things hygienic.
Mhm.
I can very much relate to that, as I'm sure other growers can, especially as you're going from that stage of selling just to a farmer's market or to a local grocer to selling to a global chain, which also has a very high level of accountability that
Yeah.
you need to meet. But those levels of accountability are very difficult to achieve as well as a
Yeah.
small grower.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of cost involved in preparing your unit, your space, steps involved in making sure that the environment is controlled and all these kinds of things. And I do see that a lot. Actually, you see a lot of microgreen growers in other countries. And they're just, yeah, I'd say we're just going to have this regular unit and we're just going to do this and do that. And you do see all the stuff happening online. And then you go, but they're doing it, then I should be able to do it, I think. And then when you start reading the rules online that are suggested by certain organizations that are there to try and keep our food as safe as possible, then you go, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing that other thing. Okay, I should probably take a look at that. And oh, in order to get this certification, I need to go through all these steps to do certain things to the space that we're in, or be prepared with certain types of documentation, checklists and records and all that kind of stuff. And then you go, okay, yeah, the record keeping is almost not the most important thing. Obviously, keeping the food safe is the most important thing, but like having the records that make sure that you're keeping the food safe and things like that, very important. These are the things that actually make your business work. Do you have a sales process written up? Do you have a policy for what people are supposed to do? Do you have a training procedure? Like, what do you do when you bring somebody into the business? How do you train them? What do they need to know? All that kind of stuff. So without these things, you don't really have a business. You're just like flailing around, trying to figure out what's going on.
No, so you mentioned in the notes you sent me about not knowing about the food industry and then trying to understand what was required to be a trustworthy business. And is this one of the aspects of trustworthiness that you had in mind, like that food safety, that hygiene aspect of your production facility?
Yes, I think that's a big aspect of being a trustworthy business. Something else is just answering the phone or answering email. I know I've had some customers actually come to us and then we said, maybe we can't deliver all the way out to New York, kind of far away. And they're like, oh, we found another supplier. And then they come back, okay, that supplier actually just ghosted us. They just stopped replying. Things like that. There are many ways to build trust. Your social media presence is one. Cleanliness that you have, actually certifications that you might have. Generally, just being open with people about what your practices are. If somebody asks you, are your seeds organic? Is your soil organic? Like all that kind of stuff. Most people are actually quite well educated these days. Not too many people are really concerned if you're not certified organic, but they do want to get an answer about what it is that you use as part of the inputs for your growing process with the environment. Just being open and honest about those things and not trying to like scurry around answers. I think is one way to add trust to your business. The general online presence of, hey, this is what we're doing. And yeah, and just getting out there basically and talking to different people, letting them know what you're doing and what your goals are and what your mission is. I think sometimes when you're unclear about there's a level of, I'm not really sure what these people are doing. Are they helping this person? Are they helping that person? And I think that can also lead to a level of distrust sometimes. So it's just being clear about what you want to do and what the steps are involved? What steps are involved in order for you to actually reach that goal?
That's maybe a nice segue into something else here. And you mentioned that you didn't create your referral program soon enough. And by referrals, you're really working on that word of mouth marketing. How does that tie in? Like, where, if you're trying to build that trust in the beginning, maybe the question is, how early can you start a referral program? Can you start it before you have that trustworthiness built up?
Yes, I think so. I think you have to be at a point where you're already creating your product. I think I'm sure that there are sneaky ways of building trust before you create a product that a lot of people are pretty good at doing, but that's putting the cart before the horse kind of a situation. So
Yeah.
I would say have the product first, especially if it's a food product and not just like a whatever item. And then actually sharing it with people and getting them to send you their feedback and giving them incentives to send their feedback. But being careful not to tread on the line of I hate in a kind of a situation. You definitely want that feedback to be given freely and honestly, and don't be shy to share a review that maybe has something that is not like only 100% the most amazing review, because those ones are actually the ones that usually build trust better with a lot of customers. Oh, maybe they would say something like, I like the broccoli. It did this for me. Da, 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 da. I don't like the Basco blend because it's got some spice in it. I think there's a level of honesty in that kind of a review that people are looking for. They might go, oh, I like spice, so I am going to try the Basco blend a situation, but don't just always pick reviews to show to people that are like these beautiful reviews. Try and pick something that does have that sort of little touch of reality in there, because I think that builds more trust as well. And then just as far as the referral program goes, just putting it everywhere. Put it on your business cards, put it on the website, put it like wherever you want it to go. I should have actually started a different referral process for the direct to consumers to begin with. I think that would have worked out better, but we definitely have one for the chefs as well that gives them a nice credit on file that they share. And once somebody already had that level of trust with you, and they've already built a level of trust with their friends and family and colleagues, then when they share more business information with that other person, the chances of that new individual trusting you naturally are just like exponentially higher. You don't have to go through this whole process of having all these different touch points when you share things online, send them some things in person, try and call them. It's just so much more work to try and get a new customer that you then have to build a level of trust with them. Even now, we'll do like phone calls. People will say, yeah, let's get them samples. The sample thing definitely builds trust to begin with, like chefs and things like that, because then they can actually see your product in person. So it's not just the pretty pictures. They're like, okay, what does it look like when it actually gets delivered? Does it have the shelf life that they claim that it has? I'm just going to put it in the fridge, let it sit there and see what happens. And once they actually get to taste it and touch it and feel it and put it in the fridge and see what happens, then they already have another level of trust. Even if they're not ready to buy yet, they already have an experience with you. That's a really good experience. And then after that, it's like, how consistent can you be? I think consistency is something that a lot of people struggle with because they're unclear as to what their goal is. They're unclear as to what is required in order to reach that goal. So they start things and then stop, and then start things and then stop. They say, yeah, we can fulfill your order. And then they just ghost someone because they're just like, wait a minute, actually, I don't want to do that. And instead of saying, you know what, I thought it was going to work out for us, but it's actually not going to work out for us. And maybe let me see if I can find you another supplier that would work for you. They just stop answering the phone. So definitely don't do things like that. If you can't do it right now, there are other people who can do it. And if you refer someone, there's a much better chance that they're going to come back to you later too. So keep that in mind. I think just generally like trust building is something that should come naturally to us. It's like just manners, like basic manners. But I don't know if there's a lack of learning about manners these days or what the case is. Maybe it's too much social media and we don't know how to interact with people anymore. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. There's a level of professionalism there as well, because chances are you might want to approach that chef or that grocer in the future. And if they've already got this impression of you of being unreliable, rebuilding that relationship's very difficult. Once you've damaged something like that, it's very hard to get back. And
Yeah.
it can seem like it's a negative thing to say, I can't do this. I'm going to refer you to someone else. But I think it's better than just like ghosting somebody and never replying, because then you're just building a reputation as being unreliable.
Exactly. Yeah. So definitely being consistent with your deliveries. And if you are not able to deliver for whatever reason, you need to have a system in place to be able to communicate that quickly and concisely with whoever it is that you're delivering to, so that they don't think that you just didn't show up. Because one of the things is, let's say you're doing deliveries and they're used to getting their delivery by 3 o'clock ish, and it's 4:30 and you're still not there, and they're closing at 5, but they haven't heard from you. And as far as they're concerned, you've just disappeared off the Facebook planet, and you're like, I'm still on my delivery route. In your mind, no big deal. But in their mind, it's like they're starting to worry now. Like, where are you? What's happening? So just having open communication channels is right there to disrupt any potential untrustworthy feelings that your customer might have, making sure that you keep the communication channels open, and just be willing to pick up the phone and call them. Don't just send one email to a bunch of people and expect that they all read the email. It's probably 10% of them read the email and the rest of them didn't read the email. Yeah. Have other ways of communicating.
So you'd also mentioned that earlier you had talked about, you did some good market research in the beginning that really helped you, but also you didn't do enough market research. And do you think this is one of the things that might have come up in doing more market research when your market is the restaurant industry or the grocery industry, what their needs are as specific customers that are different? A chef is going to have very different needs than a grocer based on delivery times, quantities, things like that. So is that something that you think in your market research would have made a difference in the beginning in understanding these customers?
I think so, but I think it also would have been helpful to have different sort of talking points for a market, because there's different types of customers, like the grocers versus the restaurant versus an end consumer. And then there's also different areas. Because when we were initially getting started, we were really focused on our immediate area around us. We really were not concerned about going out further and what that would look like. We didn't spend some time just looking up how many businesses that would actually be interested in microgreens actually exist in the city. We just went to one place that we learned about, and then we went to another place, and then we're like, oh, there must be like lots more of these places. So we'll just go and get more racks. No big deal. And then we'll figure it out later. It wasn't like, hey, let's just actually see if the market exists first. So that is a really hard lesson learned, that we just didn't do that. So we got some good results from going to the local farmers market, but not the best result. And then we got some good results from going to the local grocery stores. But once we wanted to grow and expand a little bit further, we just assumed we would have those good results moving into other close by cities. And that hasn't really been the case. So it's really been a matter of having to go out much further, drive much longer distances, and incur more costs in order to actually get to the market. That is definitely something that was a bit of a shock for us once we actually started figuring out what was required. Yeah, but then also just knowing the restaurants, like how do you approach a restaurant? What is a chef looking for? If you don't know already, just simply sitting down and brainstorming, put yourself in a chef's shoes and just imagine what their life is like on a daily basis, and think about the types of things that they want and the types of things that they're looking for, and think about the fact that they're really busy and they don't want to spend half an hour on the phone with you talking about microgreens. They do want good quality microgreens, but they definitely don't want to spend half an hour with you. Think about that. Yeah. And so how do you communicate quickly, concisely? How do you get them to communicate with you quickly and concisely? A lot of chefs do not want to have to go to their desk to sit down, open up their computer, and send you an email. So how else can they communicate with you that's faster, that they can do while they're on the go, basically? Texting is really important to a chef, for example, whereas the end consumer really likes to look you in the face and tell you about their whole life story. What's happening to their cousin on the weekend. All very different experiences, and you have to be prepared to handle each one of them with the right materials, the right communication channel, and the right product as well. So what does that person want to eat compared to what that person wants to eat, and how are they cooking? And what is it that they're looking for in their cooking? And that's going to determine what kind of crops you're going to be growing based on your market as well. All very important things to know.
Yeah, I know we learned the customer pickup lesson. It took us a while, but we wanted to be flexible and offer people the option to pick stuff up from us, but they would pick up from us while we were harvesting. And it became so disruptive that we started becoming resentful and we had to change our whole system. And we basically went with a system that basically said customers are never allowed to come anywhere near us. Because yeah, they come, they want to talk about the product, they want to hear, they want to share things, but you're in the middle of cutting something with a sharp knife. So generally not a great combination. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I can empathize with that. I want to circle back to something. I want to skip over the personality of chefs to avoid getting myself in trouble and go back to geography.
Yeah.
Now, most people that are going to hear this may not understand what we're talking about when we're saying mission. So we're
Right.
talking Mission, British Columbia, small city / large town, about an hour and a bit outside of Vancouver, which is one of Canada's major metropolitan centers. And so a very ideal market for microgreens growers. So is this one of the things you're talking about, like the farmers market in Mission versus the farmers market in Vancouver in terms of hitting an ideal market for your products?
Yes, huge. Farmers markets in movies. And then you go to your local farmers market. And then you go to the local farmers market in a slightly more rural area like Chilliwack or Mission versus a farmers market that's actually in the middle of Vancouver. And these experiences are all wildly different. They are not the same at all. The types of customers that go to these different markets are completely different. The type of vendors that go to these markets are completely different. It's really just one market is not like the other market. And you have to test them all out basically to see which ones are actually viable or not. And you have to be willing to drive long distances if you're far away from the city to go to the bigger markets and see what those bigger markets are like. When it comes to markets, you have to like look ahead for certain markets. Not all markets are like, yeah, just show up. That is one thing that actually helped. I did work for farmers market for a little while, and some people literally just show up with their stuff. That's not how it works. But anyway, okay. So you got to book, you got to have insurance to go to the market. Sometimes it's covered by the market, but usually it's not. You can have to pay for your own insurance, things like that. And there are extra costs that are incurred. So a lot of the time, some markets around here at least are a little bit more like a good marketing avenue in the sense that you're paying for going to the market, which is like paying for ads. People see your logo, they see your products, they maybe get to try it. And in this sense, you're actually essentially getting paid back for your marketing effort immediately, but you're not necessarily making enough money for it to be a good sales channel for you to be profitable. It doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile though. I know when I first started going, I was just like, we barely broke even. Why should I keep going to the market? This is stupid. You have to start to think of different activities in different ways in order to see the value in those activities. And you have to understand that sometimes you have to put effort in now that you're only going to see a result from maybe a year down the road. And again, you have to be willing to be consistent with those efforts over a long period of time before you're actually going to see a lot of those results. And not being consistent is a big issue. And usually I find when I'm not consistent, it's because I've thought, okay, I'm going to try this thing. I try it for 2 weeks. It's not working. Don't want to do this anymore. Or it is working, but I get in my head about, okay, now that it's working, now I have to be like excellent at this thing. I got to be so good at it that I'm like the best. And if I'm not the best, then why am I doing this kind of a thing? And I really talk myself down out of doing those. And somebody might just be like, oh, it'd be so great if you could just add this one little thing in. And that one little comment ends up making me be like, this is useless. I suck at this. I can do this.
This isn't a counseling session, Alex.
Yep.
But I know exactly what you mean. It's easy to feel that you're deficient in things because you're not fulfilling somebody's individual quirky need. Even if it's relevant, you can't be all things to all people all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not even aware of that when you're getting started. And I think that's one thing that people don't talk about a lot. It's just somebody might actually be like, oh, I do need to do that. And they actually legitimately feel like they have to fulfill all of these requirements in order for it to be worthwhile. And most of the time, just some really basic tasks that are done consistently will provide much better results than being like perfect at anything inconsistently, basically. So it's really important if you're going to choose to make them post regularly. If you're going to choose to make phone calls regularly. And you don't have to do all the things. You just have to pick one and just give that all of your attention until you get really good at that, and then pick something else and then start working with that. But keep in mind that if you're not doing all the things, you're not going to get results as quickly. And so you need to be able to plan for that. You can't just say, okay, I'm only going to do this one thing. And somehow I'm also going to be able to have this multi-million-dollar farm that's bringing in all this money. So you have to be willing to start small and get results back slowly to begin with, especially if you don't have a lot of cash flow to begin with, if you don't have a whole bunch of investors that are paying for a whole bunch of things. You need to be able to, get something back for what you put in, and don't quit your day job, basically. If you're just getting started, be willing to do it early in the morning or after work on the weekends, that kind of a thing. So I just think that the level of confidence that people have, for example, or the chatter that you have in your mind actually holds you back more than what should I do? These are the things that you should do. Okay. And then you still don't do it. Why are you still not doing it? So I think a lot of people don't talk about that enough. It's not just what to do. It's also like how you feel about it. Making sure that your head is in the right state so that you can actually continue to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And I know my experience in life, having had a lot of negative thoughts over the years, is that directly my state of mind, my state of thinking is directly related to how well I'm eating, how well I'm sleeping, how much energy I've got. And when I'm overworking and I'm burnt out and I'm not eating well because I'm stressed out about trying to fulfill all these work requirements, it creates a bit of a vicious circle where you can't fulfill those requirements because you're too tired, and you're tired because you can't let it, and it can just get you spiraling out of control. So it's a bit of a different topic, but you do need to learn to understand yourself in the context of the business, and you need to be able to rein that stuff in. And I know for me, one of the changes we made over time was I came up with a saying, customization kills. And so in the early days, we'd go out of our way for a delivery. We would change orders, sizes, change mixes, because we needed the customers, we needed the sales. But after a certain amount of time, we got to the point of, nope, these are our delivery days, these are the products. If that doesn't work for you, then we're not the business for you.
Mhm.
And I think we felt we were letting people down at first, but that's the reality. If I want to order groceries online, I look up my postal code, they tell me my delivery days, they tell me how to pay. There's a bit of customization, but it's built into the system. There's things I can customize, there's things I can't. And I think for us as a growing business, understanding what we could and couldn't do and maintain was a big part of that. And yeah, limiting customization and offering what we offer, and that's it, made a big difference. Sure.
Yeah. And playing around with the offer. Don't be afraid to start with one offer and then change it. But also don't just go, okay, we put it out there for 2 weeks and it didn't work. Like 2 weeks is not enough time. So you also have to have an understanding of, okay, I built this offer and now I need to give it enough time to see if it actually does work. And I need to put in the marketing efforts to actually get people to know about it. And once people know about it and you get feedback, then you can go, okay, now I'm going to change this a little bit. Even to this day, I went to the market the other day and someone was like, oh, we had a few people who were asking for smaller boxes of pea shoots. But I was like, no, that's the size of pea shoot. That's just how it comes.
And and people will continue to buy that size in most cases, and the odd person won't. And that's too bad, but it's also fine at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're constantly just taking, that's a good point though. It's like when you are getting feedback from people, like one person's comment is one person's comment. And you don't want to just be constantly changing your systems and processes and business decision making processes just because of one comment. You want to see like how many people are actually saying the exact same thing. So then you're listening to your customer base, but one person is not your whole customer base. And you do want to be listening to the feedback, but you also need to go, okay, like how many customers do I have and what is the percentage of customers that are active with one random person? Then not really worth you making a change. But if there are 20% of customers who are asking for that, then it might actually make a difference to your bottom line. And there might be other people who haven't given you the feedback that are looking the same way. It's really, again, looking at your numbers and making decisions based on what's with the data and not just some random comment that you get.
Yeah. I really want to talk about numbers. But I also realize we've been talking for a little over an hour now. And so I think this is like a good time to wind this down, and maybe we can visit numbers and some of these other topics in another session. Any last sort of thoughts on some of the stuff we've just covered here you'd love to end with?
No, I don't think there's anything that I really need to add necessarily. I would just say definitely, as we just touched on, make sure that your head is in the right place, in the right space to actually be working on a business. And if you're not really sure if you're there, then you probably aren't there. It doesn't mean you shouldn't start, but it does mean that you should, make sure that you have a contingency plan or two or three or four in place. Make sure that you're not going to just completely fall flat and not be able to continue to keep trying. So you want to just put things in place to make sure that you can keep iterating and keep getting better and not spend all of your money in one place or all of your time in one place. Not all the eggs in one basket.
Yeah. I know Diego often says, do the work. And even though part of that is like making sure you're doing all the stuff that you need to do for your business, there's the other hand where you need to do all that stuff for yourself and for your family and all that as well, but you don't want to let go. So yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, because if you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to make it very hard to take care of your business.
Yeah. And when you guys started, you are the business. As much as you don't really want to think about it that way, it's like when you're small, it really is that closely related. When you start hiring other people and other people are doing certain tasks, then what's the word I'm looking for? But things that kind of make you unique are not necessarily going to be affecting that part of the business anymore. It's something else that's unique to that person. But if you hired someone who has experience there and they're better at it, then it's not going to be as much of an issue, and it's spread between different people. But when you are the one person doing all the different things, there are all kinds of little things that bubble up to the surface that you didn't even realize were issues.
Yep. When you start being a microgreens grower, you didn't realize you had to be a marketing specialist, a bookkeeper, the janitorial staff, like all these things. So there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great topics to touch on. And hopefully we can connect again to get into some of the financial stuff, which we've talked a lot about, obviously. And I've got a whole other couple pages of notes here that we could hopefully get on another time as well.
Sounds good.
Now just pausing, because pausing makes it easier to edit. Yeah, that's good. I think we touched on lots of good stuff. I'm going to stop. No, I'm not going to stop recording, because as soon as you stop recording, someone says something and wish I would have had that. Yeah, the last question I had in this group of things was about, because you talk about taking on debt. If you can find a time to do this again, I think what would be nice to get into is how going deep into financial planning changed your approach to things. Like I know there was a big shift when we got into looking at margins and which crops made sense. So that in itself might be like a really good topic to look at. Yeah. And there's a whole, we didn't get into wish we knew at startup that would have made a big difference, which would fit into that one pretty well.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I'm away for 10 days, but if you want to do this again in a couple of weeks, it'd be great to do another session, get into some of that stuff. Hopefully the crew on this end can do some editing and get this one live pretty quick. Yeah. And then if you have other things that come to mind where you're like, oh, we should have talked about this, we could even do a little short session one time on some specific topics as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That sounds good.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't even know what time it is now. Thanks for that. I'll follow up. Oh, I felt I wanted to ask you something. Oh, I just wanted, well, how are things going with local harvest? That's one thing I was going to try to lead into, and then we went off into something else.
Yeah, local harvest. So Dan is really busy right now. And I think Dallas, his son, is the one that I'm communicating with most of the time. And he is, I don't know, like a typical farmer that doesn't want to answer the phone. If I'm there in front of his face, he's, hey, I don't know, but trying to actually get him to send a text message back or answer the phone is very difficult. So we've tried it now for, I don't know what, it's been like 4 or 5 months or so of actually having the products listed on local line. There's been some interest, but essentially probably should have had a better system for samples, because I was like, okay, I'm going to give you the samples. Just let me know who gets them. At first, he was telling me he was getting them, but then he stopped telling me. And I was like trying to get some answers from him, because I was like, they're not doing the best when it comes to selling the microgreens. So I was like, I need to do the sales process for you so that we can actually get the business coming in. But then there seemed to be maybe some resistance to wanting to tell me who the customers were. So then I was like, okay, then we need to have a different maybe system in place. But he hasn't really been clear about that. So I'm unclear as to whether he's just avoiding it or if he's actually just really busy and just keeps forgetting and isn't getting to it. So that's the thing that I need to try and get some answers on. Every time I've delivered recently, we haven't been around. We need to figure out what that looked like. But I emailed him the other day and just said, we've been doing a special Wednesday delivery because they deliver on Thursdays. I actually harvest. I was doing it. Some items were being sown a day early and harvested a day early so that in case we got an order from local line, I could harvest it and send it off to him just so I could see what it was like. And most weeks have been really just 1 or 2 orders. We haven't really got a lot of orders. I was like, okay, there's not a lot going on there. So we thought there would be more volume than there hasn't been. But sometimes there have been a few comments about, oh, we want to get it earlier in the week instead of later in the week. With those particular customers, I then trained them on telling them, well, we harvest on Thursday, or we have some Monday, it gets delivered on the Thursday, and you get it fresh. So you have a full 2-week period, basically, almost for your shelf life. It's really good quality. So I told him most chefs almost have PTSD about getting products from GFS. They get it, and the next day it's gone bad. So they don't want to deliver on Friday because by the time they come in on Monday, it's done for. But that's not the case with our product. So we need to give them the samples and we need to tell them the shelf life is really good and they need to just try it and see. So that's worked for a couple of customers, but they're so used to ordering what comes off the field that they just order like late on Wednesday to get issues with people knowing how to order by a certain time because they could kind of order some local line until full local harvest until midnight on Wednesday. And then they just come into the warehouse at local harvest Thursday morning and they pack all the orders and then send it out. But for the microgreens, I need to know ahead of time so that I can harvest it and then deliver on Wednesday. And then they have it ready or are ready for Thursday morning. So that's been difficult. Some people will order at 2 o'clock on Wednesday and they say that they want the pickup for Thursday, but I'm already on the road on my way to local harvest. Then that's been an issue. So I'm literally for the past 5 days, I've been trying to get a hold of him just to be like, hey, okay, I have a different idea. I want to try it. I sent him an email. He hasn't replied to the email, and I'm trying to get an answer here. But essentially, what I decided to do overall to the farm is switch to 2 different delivery days and 2 different harvest days already with the current customer base. I'm just gonna try and switch Chilliwack a Tuesday delivery and a Monday harvest. And then instead of having a very heavy Thursday harvest day, which is what we have right now with cleaning and harvest and everything, we'll immediately take the whole farm and just like split it in 2. But it makes it a lot easier for us to then go, okay, I can add other areas to the Tuesday day or to the Thursday day or Friday delivery day, basically. And split it up that way because we started getting into Langley now and we're getting into Port Moody a little bit, which holds all the other areas except for Vancouver. And Vancouver's just difficult. Nobody wants to pick up the phone. So I got to find a different strategy for getting hold of people in Vancouver. But basically, we expanded out a little bit. We have some other customers. Some of them are pretty good. They're ordering consistently and they've been adding to their orders since they've gotten to know us a little bit better. So that's been really good. It's not quite enough yet, though. But anyway, so then I would drop off to Lake of Harvest on a Tuesday. And then they could, so I don't have to do a schedule live all the way up to Chilliwack. We'll just drop off their regular store order on the Tuesday, plus the local line orders. And then they can deliver on Thursday. So they just have to change the cutoff date, basically. And that one of the issues with this local line itself is just a very limited software. So you can set times when you have like a cutoff for orders, but they can't set that cutoff time for my products versus their product. It's just like their whole store. So that actually been this year. And it doesn't matter even if I have my own account with local line, that still wouldn't be something that I could enable.
That seems like a pretty easy coding fix to be able to do that on a per item basis.
Yeah.
Or maybe that is an option for a higher tier.
But they don't even have a discount code. Like I asked, because I went through a lot of, I was like, hey, like, how do I do this? 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 And everything was just like, great suggestion. We will pass that along. And they do have a small team, so they can pass it along to their team like quite easily, but it's just not a priority for them to do those little things.
Right.
So, yeah.
Can you set up samples as a product on local line without charge? So can you have 15 or 20 samples that can go out that people can just order themselves?
Maybe I should do that, just like a bag of samples, because that's what we were doing before. That's a good idea.
Yeah, like a sampler pack, but it's free. And they just say sampler pack limited each week if you want to try things out. And that way they get a chance to try the stuff, see how well it stores, things like that.
Yeah, because then I can see if they order it, I can see who they are.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Now you know. Yeah, that's the way in.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, talking about making changes and taking feedback, we've got this microgreens, we've got seed leaf, the software. We get this feedback, and the question is always, do we implement this, or is this just one person's idiosyncratic system where it would work, it wouldn't work for anyone else? And yeah, it's very tricky. But we take that feedback we get from people pretty seriously because those are the people using the software. So I'm surprised Local Line isn't more responsive because that's what's going to keep people using the software.
Yeah, it's weird. Like they have a really good support team. And they definitely pass the information along, and then they take a few days, and then they get back to you and they give you answers and everything. So all of that's really good because it's such a small team. But as far as actually implementing the changes, they seem to be like reticent towards making particular changes, and they seem to be doing fine as far as what their software is doing in general for most farmers in the States and everything. So I think it really is just, it works for someone like Local Harvest. But if you're a microgreen grower, you can add a subscription feature, but you have to be on like a fancy plan to add the subscription feature because taking payments consistently on a regular basis requires a lot of extra work involved on their end. So I can see why you have to pay extra for that. That definitely has to work on that. But basically, I end up having to pay more than what Local Harvest is paying for their subscription in order to get 2 orders a week.
Yes.
That was
Not
like,
worth
this is
it.
not going to be worth my while. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed you can find something that works. But yeah, I know it's tricky.
Yeah. So essentially, we're like, you have to go out to Vancouver anyway, and they don't really want to deliver to anyone that isn't ordering their product. Really, I'm going to be going and looking for my own customers in Vancouver anyway. Yeah. So like, initially, it would be nice if they could just take it out there. I know some people have gotten to know us now. So there's a level of trust that I think we've built with some places like Foxworth or that kind of a thing that we can maybe have had the opportunity to do outside. So it's definitely, been worth it. But it definitely needs to be like tightened up a little bit. It costs a bit as far as driving all the way out there, the time involved to drive out there for a special delivery, just a shuttle bag. Hard to get a hold of Dallas. I thought at first, oh, maybe it's just an email thing. He needs to check his email when he gets back to the desk at 4, but that didn't work. And then I was like, okay, I'll try different times of the day to text him. That hasn't worked. And then I tried to call, but he just like ignores the call. And then I spoke to other people and like, hey, where is he? And even his family members are like, oh my God. Yeah, he's hard to get a hold of. But
It's a good thing. It's even if someone means well, if they can't fulfill their responsibilities, then you have to look at, okay, do you find another supplier? Just like a customer may find another microgreen supplier. But yeah, that's tricky. But if you can get enough customers in Vancouver and you can set up a delivery time, like where you're likely to hit the least amount of traffic as well, then that can make it worth it. And the more you're in Vancouver, the easier it is to drop off more samples and make each of those trips much more lucrative.
Yes. Yeah. So since you have left the farm, basically, one of the guys at Lachlan, I don't know if you remember him. He basically, I spoke to him one day and was just talking about some sales stuff, and he was just like, "Oh, like what do you do when you call people?" And so I gave him some sort of like tips about how I get a hold of people, and he was just like, "That is fascinating." And so it just happened to work out that even though he's really should be at harvesting, who's actually really good at sales. So
there you go.
I was like, this is fantastic. So I set up a bit of an incentive structure for him, and he's been able to work less hours, make more money, and also bring in a whole bunch of different meetings for us to go to. And then I could focus on everyone else. And so it hasn't cost me a lot. And it works out better for him. And my mom's happy because she's going to all these different sales meetings, which she's actually enjoying quite a bit. So she's been driving around town, going to Burnaby and Port Moody and like a whole bunch of different places just to try and get some more business when we've got some more customers. Port Moody, we're hoping will expand a little bit more. There's a lot going on in Port Moody. Where we did Langley's been pretty good. We did increase the prices, and some people are like, wow, you guys are really reasonable. And then other people are like, oh, our current supplier is a little bit cheaper. I'm like, I don't know what you're getting us, but okay, sure. So we'll see how that goes. I might have to make some adjustments there. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have some staying power, right? Like Microgreens, we just lost a couple more seed leaf customers. Yep, we just went out of business, right? The turnover in this industry is so much. So someone who's selling lower than you now probably isn't going to be able to keep that up.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. At least in my experience. I'm looking out. There's a lady that works for us. Her friend used to have a microgreen farm. And she actually started ordering from us a little bit. Like she lives in Chilliwack. And so she had this farm already paid off and had a barn. It was the perfect place for her. She was growing microgreens. She was selling to Whole Foods and everything like back in the day. And it was working out for her perfectly. But she didn't have to pay really anything for the farm as far as rent was concerned or anything like that. She was just paying for her utility essentially and then the input costs. She had a stroke, so she had to stop, but she's yeah, we're looking for another space. I actually thought the other day maybe I should message her and be like, are you using the barn for something else?
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask her and see what that's like. There's another unit that's like in the same street where we're at, but it's like half the size and it's for sale right now. So there are a couple of other people who are interested in investing in that. And then we would like move in there and just rent from them for a little bit lower. But, or we might like sell the townhouse and buying it or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, definitely. We're working on the smaller space. And in the meantime, we increase revenue a little bit with increased prices and it's more customers. Yeah, so it's happening. It's just happening very slowly.
Yeah, hopefully, if as long as it continues at a growth pace, but it may need to grow. It may need to grow at a faster rate. I don't know, remembering the numbers. But growth is good. You seem pretty optimistic, so that's good. I was a little worried that maybe you were losing enthusiasm.
I was for a few weeks there. I was like, yeah, I'm like so done. Yeah.
But that was just one of the dips.
Yeah, exactly. Which is usually the case. Yeah. I just had to listen to the podcast, people being like, just like push through. Yeah. Obviously, you don't want to push through if it's a really bad decision, but you just have to be better with the crop, basically. I'm hoping that with splitting the days into 2 harvests and 2 delivery days, that there'll be a little less labor required right now at this stage, because I could do a little bit more myself, which is going to add some work, but still better. My mom's feeling a little bit better, so she's able to do the specialty harvest things, and she got her eyes done, and she can see better, and like all this kind of stuff. So she's feeling a lot better. I just don't want to put too much on her. So yeah, I'm just hoping to cut the cost a little bit on their labor. Still keep the flat being washed by someone else or filled by someone else, essentially things like that.
The other nice thing about splitting the harvest into 2 days is you don't have that massive day anymore. Those days are exhausting. So 2 smaller days it can really help regulate your energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was also a lot of issue with the orders being tracked. So we would be like exhausted from the Thursday and then have to come in really early to pack all of the orders because we spent all day harvesting. And then it was just like, okay, you're packing things and people are not like checking things off properly. And then nobody can leave until we figure out what's going on here. And going back into all these bags trying to figure out what's going on. And leaving late for deliveries. It was like a nightmare. Yeah, I actually have more people helping on the Thursday, but for less time so that you can get it all done like way faster. And then you have the afternoon, like some people go home early and a couple of people stay to watch the farm and then pack the orders. And the orders they're done. Plus, I changed the whole coding system in QuickBooks, and it's like now when they actually look at this sheet, it's really obvious what to do. They don't have to like calculate things the way my mom did the product codes was a bit confusing for them. So that eliminated like 95% of the mistakes, like right there. And I was like, this is fantastic. Made a lot of improvements. It's good. Yeah, it definitely needs to be more.
More. Hopefully, you can get stuff at local harvest to pick up and other things come to fruition. It sounds like things are moving good. So that's good. Stay positive.
Yeah, that's pretty much all you can do.
Stay the course. Stay the course.